Welcome to Making Money. This is Matt McCall. Thanks for joining me again, coming to you from the annual Stansberry Research Alliance Conference. A guest on, first time meeting him, but I tell you what, I started skimming through this book and I'm intrigued because old school business kind of gets at me. My family grew up in the Bethlehem Steel, all working there, and this is kind of an old school type of company here as well. Still around though, so it's a little bit different. General Electric. So we have Bill Cohan joining us. Power Failure, the rise and fall of an American icon. And I'll tell you what, this is one of those old school books. You know, I always call them beach books. Bill, this might be like a 2-weekend beach book if I jump into this one, but let's jump into it. So, you know, GE, obviously, I don't care what age you are, you know General Electric, you know GE. You may know it in different iterations throughout its lifetime. What really drove you to write this book?
I'd say a couple of things. First of all, I was intrigued by the fact that, you know, this is a metaphor. There's a dead body on the ground, and I wanted to know how it got there. So that's sort of similar to other books I've written. I wrote a book called House of Cards about the collapse of Bear Stearns. You know, another dead body. How did it get there? I wrote a book about the Duke lacrosse scandal, which that was a conflagration. How did that happen? I wrote a book about Goldman Sachs. How did Goldman Sachs avoid the fate of Bear Stearns? That kind of thing. So, after I got out of business school in 1987, I'm not that young anymore. My first job was at GE Capital in New York, financing leveraged buyouts of all things, even though I had no idea what I was doing. So I knew what GE Capital was about. I was there for 2 years before I went to Lazard. So I knew what GE Capital was about. I knew what GE was. When I was at Columbia Journalism School a few years before that, completely out of the blue, a small group of us, like 3 or 4 of us, were invited by GE to sort of visit the light bulb manufacturing facility in Cleveland and the major appliance facility down in Louisville. And so here I am, like a young journalism student at Columbia University, and I'm flying on GE's corporate jets down to Cleveland and Louisville, and just thinking, my God. First of all, going through those plants was an incredible experience. Being on the corporate jet was incredible. And I'm just thinking, okay, I feel like I know this company, and we all know GE's products. And then, a dear friend of mine, who I'd started with at GE Capital, financing leveraged buyouts, was a guy named John Flannery, who succeeded Jeff Immelt as CEO. So whereas I left GE after 2 years and went to Wall Street, he stayed and rose up to become the CEO, which was incredible enough. But then, after 15 months in the job, he was, in a boardroom coup, which I tell the story of in the book. He was unfortunately summarily dismissed. And so I thought, my God, what the hell is going on here? I've got to try to figure this out. And I needed a new book. It was obviously an incredibly important company. At one point, it was the most valuable company in the world. It was the most respected company in the world. Jack Welch was obviously the most respected CEO in the world for a time, either fairly or unfairly. And I wanted to know what the hell happened. So it became a perfect Bill Cohan kind of story.
You brought up Jack Welch, and we were talking before this, and I said, the first time I was ever on TV, Fox News, long story short, he's in the green room. Jack Welch, a little guy, big blue eyes. I could picture him right now. Yeah, came up, shakes my hand. I'm there in his cheap suit that was 2 sizes too big. And his wife Susie. It was almost like I felt like it was their grandkid. They sat me down. They made me not so nervous. I went on air, and I was on air for 15 years after that. So I thank him for that because he did give me the confidence. I know obviously he passed since then. He gets a lot. It depends who you talk to. A lot of people say he's one of the greatest CEOs ever, and a lot of people say he was a dick, honestly. Like, how is he portrayed in the book?
I think fairly.
Okay.
Okay, which is what I try to do. But, I talked to a lot of former GE executives who revered the guy. And, revered him like on the record. I mean, and extolled his virtues. Now, people who've gone on to, like Dave Cote, who Jack fired when he was running the major appliances division, and then went on to Honeywell to be the CEO of Honeywell, and Honeywell ended up being more valuable than GE. Wow. So, even though Jack fired him, Dave Cote loved him. David Zaslav, who's the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, got his start at NBC, which of course GE owned, and one of the creators of CNBC, one of the creators of MSNBC. Now trying to run Warner Brothers Discovery. He loves Jack. I mean, Ken Langone, the founder of Home Depot, he loves Jack. So there are these just people who I interviewed who just love the guy. And of course, as we were talking about before, he could be very tough. He could be a dick when he had to be. He probably would have, might have gotten canceled, so to speak.
Sure.
In the wake of the Me Too movement because of some of his behaviors. When he was in Pittsfield running plastics, I tell this incredible story, which I was, sort of blessed to dig out about this Wall Street Journal reporter who covered GE, a guy named Thomas F. O'Boyle, who wrote a book about GE, and basically Jack and his high-powered lawyers tried to kill the book, which, just after getting their hands somehow on the book proposal. So even though the book wasn't written, he spent like 7 or 8 years trying to kill the book. He was constantly sort of trying to manipulate the media, and he was very good at it. He was very tough on people, but he was also an incredible leader. And let's face it. I mean, look at the numbers. You were a guy on Fox Business, so you understand this. I mean, when he took over, GE was worth $12 billion. When he left, it was worth more than $650 billion, and it was the most valuable company, in the world. And so, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Jack was tough, but
did he set up, though? Obviously extremely valuable when he left. Were the decisions that he made that you discovered that may have been setting the company up for the failure?
It's a great question, and there's a lot of debate about it. And, I spent a lot of time with Jack, one of probably the last journalists to interview him. So I was very fortunate. He was very generous with his time. I also spent a lot of time with Jeff Immelt and other GE executives, as I mentioned. So, I definitely know Jeff Immelt's side of this. Jeff wrote a book. I know Jack's side of this. Jack thought he had left Jeff a royal flush. Here we are. Casino, right?
Yep.
He thought that he had left Jeff a royal flush hand to play. And he must have said that to me 10 times, okay? So, but Jeff didn't think so. Jeff, I don't even know whether it was a low straight that Jeff thought. He was handed a pretty damn good hand, Jeff. The most valuable company in the world, the most respected company in the world, but Jeff took over September 7th, 2001. So 4 days before 9/11. GE had made the engines on the airplanes. GE had reinsured a couple of the towers down in Lower Manhattan. GE, of course, owned NBC, and for at least a week or so after 9/11, NBC ran without ads. So basically, the world changed after 9/11, and nobody could have foreseen that. There was also a lot of corporate scandals after 2001. Adelphia, WorldCom, among others, and the passage of the Sarbanes-Oxley law, which made CEOs and CFOs have to sign financial statements, and there was a lot more scrutiny on financial statements. So some of the things that some people would call shenanigans that GE engaged in under Jack, I don't think that's true, but people do, were not possible anymore after Sarbanes-Oxley got passed. So, Jeff had a very different environment. Jeff did not like the insurance businesses that Jack got in, so he couldn't get out of them fast enough. But he made a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
And that's the thing about Jeff. I think if you look at it, now Jeff doesn't think he made any mistakes, of course, but if you look at it.
Who does he blame? He blames Jack for the hand he was dealt? If he's
I
not
think he
taking
does.
blame for mistakes?
He doesn't. He never wanted to, even with me, nor in his book, blame Jack on the record. Okay. He was very careful because I think he understood.
But indirectly, does he kind of push that blame back?
Yes, I think he didn't like the hand that Jack had left him, and basically, and Jack understood that Jeff was sort of undoing the GE that Jack had left him, and I think he resented that. And Jeff made a lot of other different choices, many of which were not great choices. And anytime he sort of had a big and important decision, I think it's honestly fair to say he made the wrong decision, whether that was, deciding to go through with the Alstom deal, which he seriously overpaid for, deciding to sell NBC Universal to Comcast just after, and it's sort of amid the financial crisis of 2008. He ended up selling it, for $30 billion-ish dollars, which was well below what it's worth now, or was even worth a few years later. I mean, Comcast was like dancing a jig. They were so happy that Jeff had sold them NBC Universal so cheaply. He decided to, get out of GE Capital after the financial crisis of 2008, which I think in retrospect was not a good idea.
He seems very reactionary, where it's like, okay, the financial crisis happened, oh, we better sell our financial business.
Right.
To me, I'm more of opportunistic.
Mistake.
It's okay, maybe we could buy it pennies on a dollar now. The last thing you do is sell when it's down, right?
What business, I mean, you're in the financial services business.
Yeah.
What industry outperformed after the financial crisis? Ironically, it was financial services because there was far less competition. I mean, Bear Stearns was gone, Merrill Lynch was gone, Lehman Brothers was gone. So there was far less competition. The cost of money was close to zero for a very long time. So people who made money from money made a ton of money. Yeah. Well, is that the moment to get rid of your financial services business? Especially when you can't replace those earnings because the power business that you doubled down on and was underperforming, and you'd sold NBC Universal, and then he just went insane on promising Wall Street that GE would earn $2 a share in 2018 or 2019, whatever it was, and it was clear that he was not even going to be close to that. So he had also brought in Nelson Peltz at Trian Partners, who he thought would be a friend, who he thought would ratify, his brilliance in terms of getting rid of GE Capital and buying Alstom and getting rid of NBCU and refocusing the company back on its industrial base. But all they wanted him to do was earn in excess of $2 a share, and he wasn't even close, so they got rid of him. So it's really a cautionary tale, and it didn't have to be this way. Obviously, Jack chose Jeff, so he gets the blame for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you know this, you probably do, doing the research. Were they friendly then? I mean, obviously he chose him, but did they remain friendly after that?
I think over time they became frenemies.
Oh, okay.
I think, that's why the first words out of Jack's mouth when I first started interviewing him, and excuse my French, was that he had, up in the hiring, in the selection of Jeff.
Wow.
And he said that to me, immediately, repeatedly, and on the record. And he'd never said that to a journalist before. So, I mean, so that's how the book starts, with Jack telling me that he up by choosing Jeff Immelt, which, is pretty amazing if you think about it.
So how far does the book go up to present time, or is it stop? Okay.
It goes up to them dismantling the company.
So how do you how do you view GE now? Like when you look at it,
I weep.
Weep. Oh, really? Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not the only one.
And it was an American icon, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It was everywhere. I mean, everything in your home had, not everything, but GE everywhere, stamped everywhere.
I mean, it was in effect, if you think about it, it was sort of like Apple, Google, and Microsoft rolled into one. Yeah. I mean, had incredible technological prowess. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't really think about that now, but it was actually one of the first manufacturers of electric cars, which it abandoned because gas, turned out to be much cheaper. Yeah. But now look what if it is stuck with that, obviously the jet engines that it makes are incredible. Even the power systems that it makes are phenomenal, even though there's not a whole lot of demand for that now because they're very expensive. The healthcare equipment that it makes. I mean, GE was an incredibly technologically advanced company. I mean, it was, founded by creating electric power, which was obviously a whole new industry. So, the fact that it, is being dismantled is, to me, very sad. I don't think it had to happen, but it had to happen given the things that Jeff Immelt did, and how impatient Tryon became, and them not letting John Flannery have a chance, and then the boardroom coup that brought in Larry Culp, who I think has been very mercenary.
So where does it go from here?
It's going to be split up into
Just split
three.
up. Yeah, just split up. And
They just announced.
Yeah.
Here we are sitting in Boston, a few miles away from
Yeah.
GE's headquarters, which they've just announced they're going to get out of. They're incredibly going to sell Crotonville, which was their management development center, incredible facility on the Hudson River. They're going to sell that. I mean, it's just, if Jack Welch were alive today, this would give him a heart attack and kill him.
Yeah, it is sad because we're still America. We kind of, it's part of, you and I are part of growing up. And it's like, you start to see some of these companies unfortunately fall apart. And it comes down to a lot of times bad management, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't like the businesses, they were adapting in other areas. They've adapted for 100 years, right?
130 years.
Yeah, so it wasn't like they weren't able to do it. It's just bad management. And I guess it fascinates me how a couple individuals, I mean, how many employees did it have at the peak?
300,000?
300,000. A couple individuals can blow that up.
Well, the CEO, very crucial, is the guy who, does he listen? Does he understand the businesses that he's in? Does he understand finance? Does he understand the risks that are inherent in GE Capital? Does he get deal heat and overpay for companies he's buying, or get deal heat and sell a company too cheaply?
So how did Immelt hang around and that board not get rid of him earlier?
Yeah, you'll have to.
Read
that's
the book?
The story.
Okay, yeah, it's in the book. Okay, yeah.
But eventually, what happened is that after he bought in the hedge fund, who we thought would be a friend, they got impatient because the stock was going down the tubes. He wasn't generating the earnings that he promised, and they got rid of him.
Got rid of him finally. Man, oh man.
Yeah.
I can't read. I can't wait to read the book. Honestly, I mean, the story and. This is
it's a great story.
It's one of those books too for a lot of people watch this are invested in stock market, finance, that type of stuff. But we're all Americans, and most people watch this know all about GE. We grew up with GE. I mean, what a damn story.
American is apple pie. I mean, a lot of people put their life savings in GE.
Yeah.
It was a bellwether stock. It was one of the original stocks in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It was AAA credit rating. It was the most admired company.
Yeah.
Even before Jack Welch, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
The story. I mean, and I tell some of that in the book.
Yep.
The stories of the original leaders of GE were incredible people.
I think your next book should be on the Bethlehem Steel, and I will be your source. And I have so many sources for you. Or maybe I'll write it. Have you help me write it out. But again, make sure you go out and pick up a copy. Power Failure: The Rise and Fall of American Icon. Bill Cohan, and obviously many other books as well. I want to read the one about the Duke lacrosse because that, to me, it just is unbelievable. So I mean, I want to read it from your angle, but one of our colleagues who got you to come here, thankfully, read that, and that's what turned him on to you. So great. I can't wait to have you back on again when your next book comes out, and maybe when I write my Bethlehem Steel book,
there you
we'll
go.
get you on there. All right, thanks so much.
You.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Bill Cohan, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.